Uh, Top 26 videos of all time, in my opinion. Because I tried to make a top 20, but I couldn't do it, so it's 26. Part 4, number 20 and 19. So we're getting into it now. Number 20 and 19 on this list is where it stops just being films I love and starts becoming films that stay with me. The ones that are harder to watch, but even harder to forget. And number 20 is exactly that kind of film. Now, just to be clear straight away, this is not the Danny Boyle Sunshine. This is Sunshine from 1999, a sweeping multi-generational story of a Jewish family told across decades of political upheaval, identity shifts, and personal tragedy. And at the center of it is Ralph Fiennes, playing 3 generations of the same family. And that alone gives the film something really unusual. It doesn't feel like you're just watching different characters. It feels like you're watching history repeat itself through the same soul. What really makes this film hit for me is that it doesn't feel like a Hollywood version of this kind of story. If you compare it to something like Schindler's List, which is obviously a powerful film in its own right, Sunshine feels less guided, less shaped for an audience. It's harsher, more abrupt, more willing to just let things happen without softening the impact. And because of that, it can be a really difficult watch at times. There are moments in this film that are generally hard to sit through. But at the same time, it's just as hard to look away because it's not just telling one story. It's showing how identity, politics, and personal choices echo across generations. And one of the most powerful parts of that is how the family's legacy is tied to something as simple and as specific as this tonic, this oil. It starts as something almost symbolic of pride and identity, and over time it becomes something much more complicated, almost like a thread that connects everything, even as everything else is changing or falling apart. And I think that's where this film becomes achingly sad, because you're not just watching individuals go through things, you're watching a whole lineage carry those experiences forward. And I think part of why the film feels so incredibly dramatic and powerful is the writing. It's written by Israel Horovitz, who was primarily a playwright, and you can really feel that. There's a kind of intensity to the dialogue and the character conflicts that feels almost theatrical in the best way. He also wrote and directed My Old Lady, which has the same reflective, character-driven core. That film, in a very different way, reminds me a bit of Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, that focus on relationships, tension, and emotional unraveling. And you can see traces of that sensibility in Sunshine as well. It's slipped under the radar a bit, this film, but it's one that stays with you. It's harsh, it's potent, it's beautiful, and it's the kind of film that feels almost impossible to shake once you've seen it. And coming in at number 19, La Cité des Enfants Perdus, or The City of Lost Children. This film is just brilliant. It's Jean-Pierre Jeunet with Marc Caro, and for me that collaboration produced his 2 best films. There's something about the 2 of them working together that just feels completely locked in creatively, and this is where you really see that. There are 3 things that always stand out to me with Jeunet. First, his approach to romance. It's very French, but not in a cliche way. It's a sweet, slightly awkward, almost innocent, even when everything around it is dark and strange thing. Second, his use of color, especially green. This film has such a distinct palette, and it gives everything this surreal, almost sickly, dreamlike quality. You feel like you're in a world that isn't quite real, but still somehow grounded. And third, his almost Rube Goldberg approach to filmmaking. Everything feels mechanical, interconnected, like every moment, every action sets off something else. There's a kind of chain reaction storytelling going on that makes the whole thing feel alive. Now, the only thing about this film that isn't completely unique is that at its core, it's kind of a fairy tale. But even that isn't really a negative. If anything, it reminds me a bit of that same tendency you see in Jim Henson's work, that pull toward fantasy and storybook structure. But what La Cité des Enfants Perdus does with it is something much darker, much stranger. It takes that fairy tale framework and twists it into something really unsettling and original. And I think that's probably why I love this film more than Delicatessen, even though I love that film too. There's just something about this one, the atmosphere, the visuals, the emotion, that pushes it a little bit further for me. It's more complete. So next up are 18 and 17.